Thank you, Madam Chairman. Dr. Moon, let me turn to you first, and let's discuss for a moment. The federal government spends a lot of money on research. We have a lot of research dollars coming out of the National Science Foundation, the various department agencies, DOD. I mean, we're doing a lot of things. Let's talk for a moment about, from your experiences, what kind of suggestions you have about, in a more direct way, how do we make sure that the various federal research activities are better coordinated, integrated, as you noted?
Well, I can speak to one example that I think is a nice example for how to work on this. This is a program called IARPIC, the Interagency Research Program in the Arctic, and that program brings together people who are funded and doing work supported by different agencies. They have regular webinars, they have regular meetings, and it helps people communicate on what's going on. I think having those sorts of tools and having communication between agencies at the program manager level also encourages us on the research scientist level to be able to get information that tells us about what different agencies are interested in, so that we have a sense of the interest, the potential funding, and how they might be connected together.
Thank you. Dr. Bell, as I mentioned in my opening statement, I have a deep interest in weather patterns. I represent the northwest half of the great state of Oklahoma. I'm a product of my experiences, but I'm also impacted by the experiences of the people who came before me in my district. And where we are on the east side of the Rockies and the Southern Plains, my area was one of those that suffered dramatically in the Dust Bowl of the 1930s, the Great Depression. But in addition to that horrendous drought, which had a lot of government policy and farming practices that enhanced the misery, we went through a drought in the 1890s, drought in the 1930s, drought in the 1950s, the horrendous drought at the beginning of this decade. So you understand, as a farmer in the real world where I come from, when I ask my questions, how much does the scientific community understand about what will happen in the lower latitudes, weather pattern-wise, by what's going on in the glaciers? You see where I'm coming from here? Because glacial water changes the chemistry of the oceans, changes the temperature. That affects... I did pay some attention in my science portfolio at Oklahoma State.
Right, and one of the very clear predictions from the climate models is we're going to see a lot more of those extremes. We're both going to see a lot more droughts, and we're likely to see a lot more, what many of your neighbors saw, a lot more floods this year, because we all know we're here in Washington in the summer and it is hot and muggy. That is because hot air holds more moisture, and in the long run that's going to make more floods. So, in terms of the direct linkage between the warming climate and the weather, that's the easiest one to think about. We are going to expect more extremes in precipitation, and we're going to expect more extremes in weather. The direct link between the changing land ice and changing climate is something we're still working on, is what we heard it from Tad Pfeffer, is what will that water go into the ocean due to the ocean circulation. There's certainly hypotheses out there that the changing sea ice have contributed to some of the extreme weather we're seeing now. That's on the table. But again, it's showing how we have not decoded the weather system and the climate system on our planet, but we can see the impacts already.
Please, Dr. Alley.
Yeah, Representative Lucas, I'm sorry to interrupt. As you know, the great state of Oklahoma is fantastic in educating meteorologists, and you probably also know that there really is scholarship that shows that the federal investment in meteorology pays handsome dividends for the well-being of farmers, for the well-being of fisherpersons and others, and at a level that is a huge payoff on investment, and I can give you chapter and verse if you need it. There is great optimism now in the community that does weather forecasting, that we will be able to move into that area which give more warning to the farmers of Oklahoma, the fisherpersons of Oregon and Maine as to what's coming. We can't guarantee that, but the optimism is real, it's palpable, and it's exciting.
And I just want to follow up with one thought following on Richard's, is that we have invested a lot in weather forecasting. That's why we now I'm not a farmer, I'm a sailor, so I think about hurricanes more than droughts, sorry. But
You have water spouts, we have tornadoes.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, I do, and I worry about them too. They give me goosebumps. But we've been able to narrow our understanding of where those hurricanes are. I can plan much better when I hear there's a hurricane coming than I used to. And that's because we've invested in weather research, everything from the process-based work to the numeric. And that's what we don't have for the ice sheets yet.
Indulge me, Chairman. Dr. Volkin, what are you telling the state of Alaska about how to handle the circumstances in the next decade or so?
Well, Ian, that's a good question. I mean, we have some of the best climate modelers in the world at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, and they are doing a tremendous job in producing downscaled climate models for Alaska. Their products are only as good as the data that they can use to train those, and they've done a tremendous job in predicting out to, say, 2100 what the climate's going to be like. From that, we can make some estimates of how glaciers are going to respond, how the cryosphere in general is going to respond. And, you know, the best tools that we can produce are available, but we need to improve those tools tremendously in order to make better predictions so people can plan.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Ms. Bonamici.